stay at home now, and that they've given the child basically to the mom, and the mom's working all the time?
I'm past all that. This is for prosecution.
So who do you know that's been oppressed by the family court system?
My son, the most important one in my case. And who do you know?
How long is that? How does that affect?
I got 3 kids.
I got 1.
Yeah.
And the family court Nazis that they are
The law is
a joke.
It's the most counterproductive law that they can change. I mean, these child support laws.
What's your rearage?
Tired.
The first bill we're here today is House Bill 738, which is my bill, and so I'll be taking it with this. We have anyone opposed? Do we have anyone opposed to House Bill 643? Anyone for informational purpose?
I've got one guy.
Excuse me?
I've got one more guy in favor of.
Oh, okay, in favor. Well, yeah, you can come up and be real brief. So we can
You don't need it. They
get
don't
through this
pass
committee here. We have 2 more
All
bills
right,
to be heard.
pass
State your name for the record.
My name is Jack Dillinger. It seems like the wording in the law is in the best interest of the child, and it doesn't seem like sending him to jail is in the best interest of the child at all. Again, I agree with Mike that I don't think that this is a Band-Aid. A lot more needs to be done, and we really need to consider the best interest of the child. I don't believe making fathers or even mothers, for that matter, criminals or felons to be in the best interest of the child. Again, this is a Band-Aid. I don't think the courts don't seem to be following a lot of the legislation that's been passed, and really I think more needs to be done to try and get the courts to follow the law. And if they did follow the law, I don't believe that there would be as many fathers having to pay child support. I'm in favor of this bill. So.
Is there any question for the witness? Proceed, gentlemen. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank the representative and the witnesses for coming down and providing testimony today. And we don't have enough organizations for fathers. Seem to fall through the cracks. So I just appreciate that side of it. I'm still looking at the legislation. It looks like the legislation is extending the time for fathers to pay arrears just in case they are faced with that issue in this very difficult economy. And so do you agree with that idea, which is part of the bill?
I agree.
Okay. That's, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Proceed, gentlemen.
Thank you. I have a little difficult time here understanding. You've said several times over that this is in the best interest of the children. How's it in the best interest of the children for a father not to pay child support, or for a good portion, 25% or 50% of their child support, to be forgiven? Where does that leave the child and the custodial parent?
Well, that's assuming that the court's made a correct decision from the beginning. I mean, maybe they haven't. Maybe they haven't considered all factors. Like I said, I don't believe that the courts are actually, the judges, commissioners, are following what the current law is. And if they did follow what the current law is, then the question that you're answered would be a moot point. It would never get to that level at all. And that's what I mean. This is a Band-Aid, but at least it helps some. And I think at least it starts legislation and keeping the dialogue open to being to helping the courts pass or allow more support for fathers.
Do I understand you to be saying then that there are fathers that don't intentionally not pay child support?
Absolutely, especially in this economy. I've tried to get a job for the last 2 years, and I've had a very difficult time. Maybe it's age
And again, let me
discrimination.
repeat the question. I said, are there fathers that don't intentionally pay child support? So fathers that would have the wherewithal to pay but decide or opt not to pay for whatever reason.
I'm sure that you know, within the state of Missouri and in all states, there are a number of combinations of why people do and don't pay child support. And I think if we started at the court and changed the law, and I believe that it's already supposed to be equal, we wouldn't be having this discussion today.
I'm all for equal rights under the law for fathers or mothers or whoever the custodial parent is. I'm also, as you indicate, in this for the children, and I think that the children getting their just due is the proper way to go. And so when a father who has a job opts to quit the job instead of pay child support, I have a particular problem with that, particularly if we're then going to turn around 6 months, a year, 2 years later and relieve him of 25% or 50% of that child support that a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old's had to do without for those 2 or 4 or 6 years while they've been developing.
But that's an assumption that's made. You're making an assumption about why the father did or did not, you know, what happened to the job.
I beg to differ with you. I'm not making assumptions. I've talked to many a father that have quit their jobs and moved on just because they were too obstinate to pay. That's not the case in all instances. I mean, I do understand that there are people like yourself who are struggling to get a job and struggling to have a tough time to pay. But this bill would apply to fathers that flagrantly decide that they're not going to pay their child support also.
It would, you're right. And that's why I think if we start at the beginning in the courts, then some of this legislation...
That's not what we're here talking about. We're here talking about this bill, sir.
Right, and so, and because we can't do that today, we can only do this, I think this is a great place to start.
And again, how is this in the best interest of those children that don't get the child support that they're due?
I don't think that it's in the child's best interest to have their father or mother a felon or behind bars. I don't think that helps.
I would agree with that, and that's why I would hope that they would pay what the court ordered.
Let me, do you have any?
Is there any, are you done? All right, seeing none, one more, can you just come up?
Yes, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Never been to one of these committees. My name's David Parker. I'm a father of 4 grown children. My oldest being a girl, she's 29, and my youngest is 24.
Could you speak into the mic, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's an honor to be here today. It's an honor to be able to sit here and talk about this. I am for this bill. I think it has some pretty good points to support. If I may ask, there was one question I wanted to ask concerning the person who has a felony. It's going to help him. You said at the very end of it, or something, you mentioned something about felony.
If the, well, when you file, if you file, right now in the current law, you file $5,000 in arrears. You have a Class B felony. If you plead guilty to the criminal knowledge of court, you are charged with a Class B felony on your record. So what we're saying is, if you comply with the plan that the court set out, you have the option to go back to the court to act for that, and it's up to the judge's discretion.
Hold on, what's going on here? Are you inquiring of the lady here, or are you inquiring of the committee?
Well, I was trying to get the, the response from both here, trying to understand this one question that I have to make.
Can you go ahead and
Yeah, I just feel that...
in favor of the bill, if that's what you're going to do, because we have to keep the committee going.
Yeah, I'm in favor for it as long as it supports the moral backbone of our country and it supports the Constitution. And I think so often that's the problem in our legislative party, is that we don't support those kind of laws that are fair, you know. I think that putting a person in jail for non-support is the most non-productive thing that a person can, you know, that a law can do to a person. You know, how can a person pay when he's in prison? So when he gets out, he has this debt, right? So he has to pay the debt in order to stay out of jail again. I guess he has to pay the debt, and so it's a vicious cycle that he falls into. So he's under the law, so he can't get out from underneath that law, and it is a heavy law for that person to incur, you know, and I mean incur. So I know many people have been under that. I've been under that myself. I'm an ex-felon. I went to prison for 2.5 years because I could not pay my child support. I broke my back and I was unable to pay, and the judge still put me in prison. He didn't care, you know. So.
All righty. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the witness? And
I have a follow-up statement.
okay, you want to?
Yeah.
Well, we have to first see if we have anyone that's speaking for informational purposes, you know, and then after that you can do your closing. Anyone here for informational purposes? Okay, seeing you're recognized to close, right?
Okay. Again, basically what this is, when the law was first written, it did not consider fathers who were paying their child support and lost their jobs. We know that people who are not going to pay, period, wouldn't pay anyway, regardless of the law, because that's what they do. They're criminals and they break the law. That's what they do. This is not, you know, talking about those people. We're talking about people who were paying their child support and lost their jobs. And in an economy that we're in, some people are unable to get employed again. And also, and it takes longer for them to get employed. So when the original legislation was passed in 2009, it did not consider fathers who were trying to pay their bill. And they're not following the law according to the way it was outlined in Senate Bill 140 in 2009, according to the prosecutors and the defense attorneys I'm talking to. And that was that they have a thing set up just like drug court for these fathers. They have not even implemented that. I don't even know if it's even been funded. I was going to look into that next. So those are things that, you know, that we have fell short on in the law. But to incarcerate these people who are nonviolent offenders does not do any justice to the children, for one, because they do not get to see their father. And secondly, it does not do the state any good because we're still paying a higher cost incarcerating them than we are we pay more than they owe in arrears. So, you know, this bill is to relieve that cost of the state. You know, the burden on the state right now is astronomical for these nonviolent felons. So what we're trying to do in this legislation is just give them room in order for them to comply with the law. And most fathers come to court, they plead guilty to this charge. They automatically plead guilty. These are not fathers that are running. The father that's running wouldn't even come to court. You wouldn't have to worry about him. It'd be a warrant for him. But these fathers come to court and they plead guilty. So I just want to thank Madam Chair and all the people that came to speak for this bill.
I know that you wanted this bill to go consent,
yes,
Representative.
Because there's no fiscal note.
However, looking at the bill, what you're looking to do is change the penalty provision. And you cannot do that under a consent. You cannot change the penalty. Okay. Once you change the penalty, it's no longer a consent.
Okay. Okay.
So this concludes the hearing on House Bill 643. Thank you, lady.
Thank you.
Next up is House Bill 660, and that's